Hello, it's Bruce again. Been working on a model of a two-stall engine house. It's a very old kit, kit number 35 from Fine Scale Miniatures, two-stall engine house. Let's see if I can give you a close-up of some of the things. It has interior detailing, and I will be modeling it with some windows open. That's why that pane is out of there right now. The doors are made already, but I don't put them on until at the very end so that I don't knock them off all the time. And I'm up to the roof where I've installed a clear story on the roof, which is what the kit calls for. And I decided to put some barrel racks on the roof for the water barrels, which was a time-appropriate approach to fire prevention in wood structures like this. So there'll be 3 barrels on each side, and I'll have some ladders going up the roof and a ladder to get up onto the roof. But I wanted to weather the roof. Now, I went with a cedar shake, and there's a lot of manufacturers out there who provide laser-cut cedar shake shingles. And I looked at a number of them. I have a number of them in my stack of supplies. Most of them are very nice. They come in a variety of colors. Some of them are very light like this, manila color. Some of them are shaded darker. Here's an example. This is a nice set of laser cut cedar shakes from rail scale models, and you can see it's a darker color, and I believe that rail scale also sells it in a lighter color and so forth too. When you go look on their website, you see you have lots of options. Cedar shakes typically come as either straight cut, where you'll see nice even rows of shingles of the same width shingles, every one. You can get straight cut with random size shingles so that they vary in width. And you can get random width and random length, which gives you the look that I wanted here. Years ago, the Paper Creek Model Works offered some that were considered to be pre-weathered, nice dark color. This one is random length and random width. And I might have used it, except I don't think there was enough shingles in here to do a roof this size. What I did go with was the random length, random width, light color cedar shakes from Motrac models. It gives you a very nice look to it. Let me just try to get this in focus so you can see. I think you can read that Motrac. Zoom in here a little bit. Motrac models, you can see it's part number 84011, laser cut, random width and length, 4 sheets, and it took me 2 packs to do both sides of the roof and the clear story. I go with the type that do not have adhesive on the back because I use 3M's number 465 transfer tape to put my shingles down, and it does not require having any adhesive on the back. If you want to go old school, you can still get, I believe, the Campbell shingles that are cedar shake on a roll made out of craft paper, very similar in color to these. Because they're rolled like this, they can be a challenge to straighten out and get nice even rows with. But I've done any number of roofs with the Campbell shingles over the years, and you can make up a nice roof with it. To give you an idea of what each strip of these look like, here's a single strip of those Motrac random width and random. Let me tip it to the right angle for your camera there anyway. So random width and random length on these cedar shakes. So I have my whole roof done, and of course, it looks brand spanking new. And this is an engine house on a logging railroad, so I wanted it not to look brand spanking new. And I also wanted it to be a little bit darker in color and actually a little more reddish, like cedar color. Again, nothing wrong with the product from Motrac whatsoever. I specifically went with the light color so that I had options to color the roof afterwards, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It's going to change the color a bit, and it's going to add some weathering. Now, I've already done what I plan to do on this half of the clear story. And again, I don't know how well you can see that in the video, but you should be able to see that it is a little bit darker. You can see the lines between each shingle better because I have some powdered chalks that went into those creases so that it defines each of the individual shingles a little bit better. And it doesn't look really decrepit. It just looks like it's had some exposure to the weather. It's a bit darker, a little redder, like you would find in cedar. And I put just a tad of some black shading in to look like soot. On the side here of or it's actually the back half of the roof, you see I've punched a hole in there. That's going to be a smoke vent for the engine house so that they'd pull the engines forward so the smokestack was under the vent and it would vent out. So under this vent, when I'm done, I'll have a greater accumulation of soot, and there's a similar hole on the other side of the roof. So you have lots of choices, and you could make this look very old and decrepit, but that again was not my goal. I've over the years tried a number of things and actually successfully used a number of things to weather roofs. You can certainly do washes of mineral spirits with some black or gray paint mixed in, so it's a very thin concoction, and you just spread it on with a brush, and when it dries, the pigment from the paint is left on. You can do something similar with your mixes of alcohol and India ink and do a wash, and then come back over it with chalks. What I decided to do on this one, because I did some testing on some test strips, when you have as much time and money invested in a model as you do on something like this engine house, you don't want to just jump right in without testing. So let's see here. Up here, I tried a wash of alcohol and India ink, which gave kind of a dull, very light black overcast on top of the shingles. Here, I tried some pastels that are quite oily and did some browns and blacks there. This was basically gray followed by a little bit of black. And this one I tried a different type of chalk, something called artistic blending chalks. And I went with a technique that was first shared with me many years ago by Mike Tylick, which is when he starts weathering something, even if it's a boxcar, and he wants to tone down the lettering and so forth, he starts with some either dilute paints or chalks with a color very similar to the background color of that boxcar. And so what I was going to start to do on this roof was start with a brown, that chalk that was a little bit darker than this, but in the same family, and then come back over it with either gray or black and so forth. And I like the looks of this best, so that's what I decided to go with. Let me show you those chalks. When you're in the craft stores or in the art department of the craft stores, you keep your eyes open for different things. This is, let me get this up here, artistic blending chalks. And what you can't see, because it's written down here, and I don't think you can see it with that. I wonder if you can see it with a white background or a lighter background. Nope, you can't see it with that either. It's the manufacturer is Inkadinkado, 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 and that's who makes these chalks. They come in a container like this, and most of those colors I have never used, although you could use something like this with a boxcar, and perhaps that with a boxcar. But the two I'm using for this roof is this brown and that black. And they're a little, it's somewhat like a pastel in that they're a little oily, and they stick quite well. The tools of the trade for this approach are some very inexpensive stiff brushes. You can see that chalks tend to bite up a brush pretty significantly, so you can see this one has been used quite a bit. This one's brand new. Here I haven't used it yet, but I'm using this one for the black, and I'm using this one for the brown. And you just rub it on that container of chalk. So if I want some brown, I just take this and I just rub it in there until I get some chalk on it, and then I come over. Yeah, you can see from that angle pretty good, I think. And you just start applying it the way water would run down the roof. And I'm just kind of laying it on and drawing it down a little bit. Reaching underneath that platform a little bit. Start from the top and work down. I'm getting it into the joints between the individual shingles, because that will help make those pop out. And let me just do a little more with this a minute. I'm not going to bore you by doing the entire roof. The other thing is, when you're doing anything like this, it's better to start out with light coats, because you can always go over a second time. But you'd have a devil of a time getting this off if you put too much on. Now, the only other tool you really need are some of these eyeshadow applicators that you can get at a cosmetic department in a pharmacy or at a beauty shop like Sally's or whatever. They come in very handy when you're doing weathering. Let me just stand up a minute so I can make sure you can see this area. Maybe zoom in just a little bit. And I think you're going to be able to see it. And now I'm patting straight down to get those particles down into the cracks and crevices. And then I'm just going to lightly, I'm not really pressing, I'm just lightly drawing this down, spreading it out and taking the excess powder off. You want to go up, you don't want to go up against the grain because you lift those shingles up, but that's coming out quite even. I'm going to put a little more brown in a few spots and rub it in a little bit to make a couple of maybe darker areas. And I'll do that, and if I want it darker, I'll go over with a second coat of the brown. But I'm liking, it probably shows up better here in person than it does on the video. But I'm liking what I'm seeing here. I'm not, again, going for a really run-down, decrepit roof. What I want to do is just make it look like it's been a few seasons out in the weather. And this whole process won't take all that long, certainly not as long as it did to put the shingles on. And then again, pat it down a little bit and draw it down. Now, if you want to put a little bit of soot, nothing like I'm going to put over by the smoke vents, but just take that other brush, get a little black on it, and try not to make it look like zebra stripes, but here and there, put a little of the black, pat it down, and then come down with it. So it's something you can play around with. It's not rocket science. There's no specific formula, but I think with paper-based roof shingles, you're better off trying a variety of chalks or pastels in your weathering. And again, use some of these leftover strips and so forth and make up a test strip for yourself to play with until you get the color that you like. And I think you'll be happy with the results. And again, start with lighter coats. You can always add more if you want to, but it is hard to back up off of these things. Okay, that's it for this session.